you heard of an ACE score?
No, I don't think so.
So they're adverse childhood experiences. And the Surgeon General of California, she actually introduced this idea of giving parents with kids who have a bunch of issues just this list, like how many of these has your child experienced. And from those numbers, they were able to kind of track to see, like, if you're within these ranges, you're more susceptible to autoimmune disorders, you're more susceptible to learning disabilities, a whole list of things because of your adverse childhood experiences. And those can be anything from having alcoholic parents to having food instability to experiencing poverty. So all of these things that we experience, like, as children, give us a propensity to either live in survival, or we can be people that thrive because we have a different childhood experience. And I think that falls into connection. So, like, if you're a kid and you feel like you're disconnected from your parents, you can't ask them for help, you can't be a kid, and you have to be an adult, you have to take care of yourself or your siblings. I think that can really have a huge impact on the kind of people that we are when we get older.
So let me unpack that, because that's super interesting. From the physical perspective, or maybe the physiological perspective of, like, the autoimmune diseases, is the thinking there that these experiences, is it, like, very literal in that it causes some stress hormones to be released that, like, impact your body in a certain way, and maybe it impacts your immune system? And or is it more truly psychological, that, like, somehow our minds by kind of create things that within the body that exist? Like I said, I'm always looking for that kind of first principles understanding and the mechanics of it, understanding that sometimes those answers don't exist. But, like, what's the connection there, you think, between those experiences and then health issues later on?
Well, I'd say it's both. So I can't think of the author of the book, but The Body Keeps the Score, super popular book. But in it, he talks about how he worked with veterans with PTSD, and PTSD was actually being researched and talked about initially in relation to women and sexual assault survivors. And because the VA had more money behind them, they were able to kind of take hold of the research and fund it and create an actual diagnosis that was approved by the FDA. But he talks about how it's a mixture of things, right? Like, your brain releases these chemicals that kind of put you in survival mode, make you feel trapped. And PTSD, right? So it's a moment of being triggered and having that same experience again, and those chemicals being released in your body again. So you put all of that into a child. And so they're 6, 7 years old, younger than that, and they're in survival mode, and they don't know how to turn it off. And it leads to higher cortisol levels, higher levels of just higher blood pressure, like anything that you can think of.
Yeah, all the stress stuff. Probably
But
some adrenaline in there.
Yeah, it leaves a child with these complex emotions that, one, they don't know how to process, but two, are wreaking havoc on their bodies. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, based on, like, studies and things like that. But yeah, so it's psychological, but it's also physiological.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think about a lot. So, like, what I'm super passionate about is people gaining clarity on themselves, how they think, who they are, what they value, what they care about. And so I have a son who's 7, but I've also done some teaching here and there. And for me, teaching kids that ability seems so valuable. And what you're saying is a perfect example of it. Like, the complex emotions they have to deal with and the havoc it can wreak on your body is so crazy. And with kids, I think it's particularly interesting because it's a bit of a gift and a curse. Like, on the one hand, at that age, they're so impressionable. Their mind is so open. They haven't been kind of, like, for lack of a better word, like poisoned by like biases and blind spots and ways of thinking and their ego and all that. So it's such like a beautiful, perfect time for them to learn how to be in the world and how to find clarity and how to think and, how to deal with different stressors. But at the same time, they're so susceptible to it. And there's so many negative factors in the world. You said that list on the A list, and it's just such a delicate time. So I think of that all the time in terms of kids. Like if we could just somehow teach this to kids, the world would be such a better place, but it seems so difficult to actually do.